The desperate signal. The twin moons of Zephyr cast their silver light across the crystal spires of New Harmony, the capital city of the Zephyrian Confederation. High Chancellor Lyra Moonweave stood at the observation deck of the Grand Council Tower, her translucent blue skin shimmering with worry patterns that betrayed her inner turmoil. The elegant being's four graceful arms trembled as she watched the evacuation ships leaving the planet's surface, carrying millions of her people to temporary shelter in the outer colonies. In the distance, the night sky flickered with unnatural colors. The obsidian swarm had arrived at the edge of their system 3 days ago, and their dark ships blocked out entire constellations. Lyra had lived for over 3 centuries, serving her people through times of prosperity and minor conflicts, but nothing had prepared her for this moment of absolute terror. "Chancellor," came a soft voice behind her. Advisor Kess approached with careful steps, his own bioluminescent patterns dim with exhaustion. "The final evacuation transports have departed. Only essential personnel remain on the planet." Lyra nodded slowly, never taking her eyes off the distant flashes of light where the swarm's scout ships were testing their outer defenses. "How long do our defense platforms have?" "The tactical computers estimate 6 hours at most," Kess replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "The obsidian swarm's bioships are unlike anything we've encountered. They adapt to our energy weapons within minutes of first contact. Our shield generators cannot withstand their acidic projectiles for much longer." The Zephyrians were an ancient and peaceful race. Their technology focused on healing, construction, and exploration rather than warfare. Their ships were marvels of engineering, capable of traveling vast distances and supporting life for generations, but they carried no weapons beyond basic defensive systems designed to deflect space debris. The concept of deliberately destroying another intelligent being was so foreign to their nature that they had never developed military tactics or aggressive technologies. "Have we received any responses to our distress calls?" Lyra asked, though she could already see the answer in Kess's drooping posture. The Altarian Republic expressed their sympathy, but stated they lacked the military capacity to assist, Kess reported, reading from his bioluminescent tablet. The Crystalline Collective offered to accept refugees, but warned that sending ships into swarm territory would be suicide. The hegemony of 6 worlds has gone completely silent since the swarm destroyed their border outposts last month. Lyra felt her heart sink. The galactic community, which had seemed so vast and supportive during times of peace, had abandoned them in their darkest hour. She could not blame them entirely. The obsidian swarm was unstoppable. In less than 2 years, they had consumed 47 star systems, stripping planets of all biological matter, and converting the resources into more bioships for their ever-expanding fleet. The swarm was not a traditional species, but rather a collective consciousness that had evolved in the dark spaces between galaxies. They viewed all organic life as potential fuel for their expansion. Diplomatic contact was impossible because they saw other intelligent beings not as equals but as resources to be harvested. Every attempt at communication had been met with silence, followed by renewed attacks. "There is one more response, Chancellor," Kess said hesitantly. "It came from a sector we had not expected." "Which sector?" "The Sol system. From a species calling themselves the Terran Confederation." Lyra's patterns shifted to confusion. "I am not familiar with that designation. Are they members of the Galactic Council?" "No, Chancellor. According to our databases, the Sol system is located in what we classify as the Forbidden Zone. It contains a Class 12 death world that should be incapable of supporting intelligent life. Deathworlds were planets so hostile that the mere thought of them sent shivers through most civilized species. Extreme gravity, toxic atmospheres, violent weather patterns, and ecosystem filled with predators made such worlds natural laboratories for evolution's most brutal experiments. The idea that intelligent life could not only survive, but thrive on such a planet seemed impossible. "What did this Terran Confederation say?" Lyra asked. Kess activated his tablet, and a holographic message appeared in the air between them. The voice that emerged was unlike anything Lyra had ever heard. Where most galactic species communicated through harmonic tones or melodic frequencies, this voice was rough and direct, carrying undertones of confidence that seemed almost aggressive. Zephyrian Confederation, this is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Terran Defense Fleet. The message began. We have received your distress call regarding the Obsidian Swarm incursion. Be advised that a task force is en route to your position. Estimated arrival time is 14 hours. Hold your defensive positions and prepare for immediate tactical coordination upon our arrival. Humanity stands with those who cannot stand alone. The message ended, leaving the observation deck in stunned silence. Lyra replayed the words in her mind, focusing on one phrase that sent both hope and fear through her consciousness. Humanity stands with those who cannot stand alone. 14 hours, she whispered. That would mean they are already in hyperspace, traveling at speeds that should be impossible for ships launched from a death world. Perhaps it is a mistake, Kess suggested hopefully. Maybe they are refugees from another system who have taken shelter in the Sol system. Before Lyra could respond, the communications array throughout the city began broadcasting an emergency alert. The voice of Defense Coordinator Zane echoed across New Harmony. All remaining personnel to emergency stations. Unknown fleet signatures detected at system perimeter. Configuration unknown. Species unknown. Lyra and Kess rushed to the Grand Council chamber, where a massive holographic display showed their star system in three-dimensional detail. At the edge of the display, 12 new contacts had appeared, their energy signatures unlike anything in the galactic databases. Are those the Terrans? Lyra asked as she took her place at the Central Command Console. Unknown, Chancellor, replied the Defense Coordinator. The ships appeared simultaneously across a wide formation. Their technology is completely unfamiliar. They are not responding to standard galactic communication protocols. Suddenly, the main display flickered, and a new image appeared. Lyra found herself looking at the bridge of an alien vessel, but nothing could have prepared her for what she saw. The being standing before the camera was clearly intelligent, but it possessed features that marked it as an apex predator. Forward-facing eyes, exposed teeth designed for tearing flesh, and a lean frame that spoke of speed and endurance rather than the gentle curves of herbivorous species. But most disturbing of all was the being's expression. Despite its fearsome appearance, its eyes showed concern and determination when it looked at her. This was not the cold calculation of a predator studying prey, but the focused attention of a protector evaluating a threat to those under its care. Chancellor Moonweave, the being said, its voice carrying the same rough tones as the earlier message. I am Captain Marcus Chen of the TDS Indomitable. We are here in response to your distress call. Captain Chen, Lyra managed to say, her voice slightly trembling. We are grateful for your response, but I must ask, what species are you? Our databases show no record of Terrans. The human's expression shifted into what Lyra would later learn was a smile, though at the time it appeared to be a display of hunting teeth. We are humans, Chancellor. We come from a planet called Earth, which your databases probably classify as uninhabitable. A death world, Kess whispered behind her. That is correct, Captain Chen confirmed, apparently having heard the comment. Our planet taught us to be survivors. It taught us that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to be more dangerous than the thing trying to destroy it. The holographic display shifted to show tactical information. Captain, Lyra said, studying the swarm positions, you must understand the nature of our enemy. The Obsidian Swarm has destroyed 47 systems. They have never been defeated. Your 12 ships, while clearly advanced, are facing over 3,000 biovessels. We understand the odds, Chancellor, Captain Chen replied calmly. But there is something you need to understand about humans. We evolved on a world where everything tried to kill us every single day. We learned to be pack hunters not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we were smart enough to work together and stubborn enough to never give up. Another human appeared beside Captain Chen. This one slightly smaller, but with the same predatory features and confident demeanor. Chancellor, I am Admiral Mitchell. We have been studying the swarm's attack patterns during our approach. They rely on overwhelming force and biological adaptation, but they have a critical weakness. What weakness? Lyra asked, hope beginning to stir in her chest. They have never fought a species that evolved specifically to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and more numerous than themselves, Admiral Mitchell explained. Earth taught us that the most dangerous predator is not the one with the biggest teeth or the strongest claws. It is the one that can think, adapt, and coordinate with others of its kind. The communication was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the Zephyrian Command Center. Chancellor, Defense Coordinator Zane called out, "The swarm is moving. All 3,000 ships are advancing toward the planet." Captain Chen's image on the display remained calm despite the overwhelming odds. Admiral Mitchell, initiate Protocol 7. All ships to Battle Formation Delta. Understood, Captain. Good hunting. Lyra watched in amazement as the 12 human ships spread out into what appeared to be a defensive formation around her planet. Each ship was significantly smaller than the massive swarm biovessels approaching them, but they moved with precision and purpose that spoke of extensive training and coordination. Captain Chen, she called out, "What is Protocol 7? The human predator's smile became more pronounced, showing more of those sharp white teeth. "Something we learned from wolves, Chancellor. When the pack is outnumbered, you do not try to fight all the enemies at once. You separate them, confuse them, and make them fight on your terms instead of theirs." As the obsidian swarm closed in on Zephyr, filling the sky with their dark bioships, Lyra realized that for the first time since the crisis began, she felt something she had thought was lost forever. She felt hope. These strange, dangerous beings from a death world had traveled across the galaxy to stand between her people and annihilation, and they spoke of the coming battle not with fear or desperation, but with the quiet confidence of predators who had found prey worthy of their attention. The swarm was about to learn why death worlds produced the galaxy's most dangerous species, and why humanity had survived everything the universe could throw at them. The death world solution. The obsidian swarm advanced like a living storm across the void, their bioships pulsing with organic energy as they closed in on the Zephyrian homeworld. Hive Mind Alpha 7, the collective consciousness controlling the nearest cluster of vessels, felt satisfaction as it analyzed the pitiful resistance ahead. 12 small ships against 3,000. The organic matter from this system would fuel the swarm's expansion for months. But as the distance closed, something unexpected happened. The tiny human ships did not form a traditional battle line or attempt to create a defensive barrier around the planet. Instead, they scattered in seemingly random directions, disappearing into the asteroid fields and gas clouds that dotted the outer system. Prey behavior. Alpha 7 communicated to the rest of the swarm through biochemical signals. They flee before superior numbers. Pursue and consume. On the bridge of the TDS Indomitable, Captain Marcus Chen watched the tactical display with the focused intensity of a born hunter. Around him, his crew moved with practiced efficiency, their actions coordinated through years of training and shared experience. These were not the gentle, peaceful beings like the Zephyrians. These were humans, forged in the crucible of Earth's hostile environment, and they had learned lessons that no other species in the galaxy understood. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park from the weapons station, "all ships are in position. The swarm is taking the bait." "Confirmed," added Commander James Torres from Tactical. "They are breaking formation to pursue our individual ships." Classic pack hunting behavior, but they are the ones being hunted now. Chen nodded, opening the communication channel to Admiral Mitchell aboard the TDS Relentless. "Admiral, the chess pieces are moving. Are you ready to show them what humans learned from playing with fire?" "More than ready, Marcus. Humanity has been preparing for this fight for 200,000 years. We just did not know it yet." Back on Zephyr, Chancellor Lyra watched the unfolding battle with growing confusion and terror. The human ships appeared to be fleeing in panic, each one pursued by hundreds of swarm vessels. This was not the coordinated resistance she had hoped for. This looked like a massacre in the making. "Chancellor," Advisor Kess said, his voice tight with worry, "the human ships are being overwhelmed. Perhaps we should attempt to negotiate with the swarm while there is still time." But Defense Coordinator Zane, who had been studying the tactical display more carefully, noticed something odd. "Wait, look at the pursuit patterns. The swarm ships are not maintaining their formation. They are being drawn into the asteroid fields and nebula clouds where their numerical advantage means nothing." As if responding to his observation, the first phase of the human plan began to unfold. The TDS Wolverine, which had appeared to be fleeing in panic toward the Kepler asteroid belt, suddenly reversed course and opened fire on its pursuers. But these were not the energy weapons that galactic civilization typically used in space combat. Instead, streams of kinetic projectiles, simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible velocities, tore through the bioship's adaptive armor like paper. The swarm vessels, designed to quickly adapt to energy-based attacks, had no defense against what amounted to hypervelocity bullets. Their organic hulls, evolved to regenerate from energy damage, were shredded by the primitive but devastatingly effective projectiles. How is this possible? Alpha 7's confusion rippled through the swarm network. These weapons are archaic. They should be ineffective against our bioarmor. But the humans were just getting started. As the swarm ships converged on the Wolverine's position, two more human vessels emerged from the asteroid shadows, catching the bioships in a crossfire. The TDS Grizzly and TDS Falcon had been waiting in ambush, using the asteroid's mineral composition to mask their heat signatures from the swarm's organic sensors. "This is impossible," Alpha 7 transmitted to the other hive minds. "They are using the asteroids as cover. Organic sensors cannot penetrate the mineral density." How did they know this? The answer came from Captain Chen's voice, broadcast openly across all frequencies so that both the swarm and the Zephyrians could hear. "Because we learned to hide from things that wanted to eat us long before we learned to build starships. Every human child knows how to use terrain to their advantage. It kept our species alive for millions of years." The second phase of the human strategy began as the scattered human ships started to work in coordinated pairs. The TDS Indomitable and TDS Valiant emerged from the outer gas giant's storm system, their hulls crackling with electrical discharge from the planet's magnetosphere. They had used the giant planet's natural phenomena to supercharge their weapon systems, turning environmental hazards into tactical advantages. Impossible. Alpha 7's rage flooded the swarm network. "They are using the planet's own energy against us. This defies all tactical logic." "Not if you grew up on a world where the weather tries to kill you every day." Admiral Mitchell's voice cut through the swarm's communications with surgical precision. "Humans learned to turn storms into shelter, floods into transportation, and lightning into tools. You picked a fight with a species that learned to make friends with natural disasters." The swarm's numerical advantage was rapidly becoming meaningless as the humans turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. Ships that tried to pursue human vessels into the gas giant's storm system found their biocomponents disrupted by electromagnetic interference. Those that followed humans into asteroid fields discovered that the small, agile human ships could navigate spaces that were impossible for larger vessels, leading their pursuers into collision courses with space debris. But the most devastating revelation came when the swarm tried to use their signature tactic, biological adaptation. The bioships began to evolve defenses against the kinetic weapons, growing thicker armor and regenerative capabilities. For a brief moment, Alpha 7 felt the familiar satisfaction of evolutionary superiority. Then the humans switched to thermal weapons. And when the swarm adapted to those, the humans switched to electromagnetic pulse devices. And when the bioships evolved EMP resistance, the humans began using chemical explosives. They keep changing their attack methods. Alpha 7 reported to the greater swarm consciousness, its confidence shaken for the first time in decades. Each time we adapt to one weapon system, they employ something completely different. How do they possess so many different technologies? The answer came from Captain Chen, his voice now carrying the cold satisfaction of a predator that had cornered its prey. Because our planet tried to kill us in every way possible. We learned to fight ice ages with fire, floods with engineering, predators with tools, diseases with medicine, and starvation with agriculture. Every challenge Earth threw at us made us more adaptable. You are not fighting a military force, Alpha 7. You are fighting 200,000 years of survival instincts. The tide of battle had turned completely. The swarm's 3,000 ships were scattered across the system, broken into small groups that could be defeated in detail by human tactics. Ships that had seemed unstoppable when working together became vulnerable when isolated and confused. Commander Torres aboard the Indomitable called out coordinates to the other human vessels. Grizzly and Falcon, there's a cluster of 200 bioships trapped in the asteroid field at coordinates 7 Mark IV. They cannot maneuver effectively in the debris field. Roger that, Indomitable. Moving to exploit the opening. Chancellor Lyra watched in amazement as the small human fleet methodically destroyed swarm formations that outnumbered them by hundreds to one. But it was not just the tactical brilliance that impressed her. It was the way the humans fought as a single organism, each ship anticipating the other's movements, coordinating attacks with perfect timing, protecting wounded vessels while maintaining offensive pressure. They fight like a pack, she whispered to herself, finally understanding what Captain Chen had meant about learning from wolves. The final phase of the battle began when Admiral Mitchell implemented what the humans called the Terran Gambit. All 12 human ships suddenly accelerated directly toward the largest concentration of swarm vessels, appearing to make a suicidal charge against overwhelming odds. Alpha 7 felt a moment of triumph. Finally, they revert to primitive aggression. All units converge on the human ships. Eliminate them before they can reach our primary formation. But as the swarm ships moved to intercept the human charge, they fell into the final trap. The human vessels were not making a desperate attack. They were herding the remaining swarm ships into a carefully prepared killing field. The asteroid field ahead erupted in explosions as charges the humans had placed during their earlier maneuvering detonated simultaneously. Thousands of asteroids became projectiles, creating a storm of debris that tore through the densely packed swarm formation. The bioships, designed to fight in open space, had no defense against an avalanche of stone and metal moving at orbital velocities. This is how humans hunted mammoths, Captain Chen announced as the swarm's formation disintegrated. We did not try to fight them one-on-one. We drove them off cliffs. Alpha 7 felt something it had never experienced before: fear. The swarm's numbers had been reduced to fewer than 500 ships, scattered and demoralized. For the first time in the swarm's existence, they were considering retreat. Impossible, Alpha 7 transmitted to the surviving bioships. We are the ultimate predators. We have consumed galaxies. We cannot be defeated by 12 primitive vessels. You are not the ultimate predators, came Admiral Mitchell's response, her voice carrying the quiet authority of absolute certainty. You are just another bully that never learned what happens when you pick on someone who knows how to fight back. Earth taught us that every predator can become prey if you are smart enough and determined enough. The remaining swarm ships began to withdraw, but the humans were not finished. They pursued the retreating biovessels with relentless efficiency, ensuring that none would escape to report their defeat to the greater swarm consciousness. As the last swarm ship exploded in the void, the silence that followed was profound. The Obsidian Swarm, unstoppable conqueror of 47 star systems, had been completely destroyed by 12 ships from a species the galaxy had never heard of. On Zephyr, Chancellor Lyra stood in the Grand Council chamber, watching the tactical display show the impossible: victory. Not only had the humans defeated the swarm, they had done so without losing a single ship. The Deathworld species had proven that sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one that appeared least threatening. Captain Chen's image appeared on the display once more, his predatory features now seeming protective rather than threatening. Chancellor Moonweave, the immediate threat to your world has been eliminated. We will remain in system until you are certain that no other swarm forces are approaching. Captain Chen, Lyra said, her voice filled with wonder and gratitude. How can we ever repay this debt? You have saved not just our world, but potentially the entire galaxy. The human smiled, showing those white teeth that no longer seemed frightening. No repayment necessary, Chancellor. Protecting those who cannot protect themselves is what separates civilization from chaos. Earth taught us that the strong have a responsibility to defend the weak. In the days that followed, word of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had lived in terror of the obsidian swarm for years could hardly believe that the unstoppable force had been defeated by beings from a death world. But more than that, they were amazed by humanity's reason for fighting. Not conquest, not resources, not territory, but simply because it was the right thing to do. The Terran Confederation found itself flooded with requests for mutual defense treaties, trade agreements, and cultural exchanges. The galaxy had discovered that sometimes the most dangerous species could also be the most honorable. As the human fleet prepared to depart Zephyr, Chancellor Lyra stood once more at her observation deck, but now the view filled her with hope rather than fear. The stars no longer seemed cold and hostile. They seemed full of possibilities, protected by guardians who had learned that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when destruction was necessary to preserve life. The death world had sent its children to the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.